Hello, my fellow YouTube friends and family out there in YouTube world or YouTube land, whichever. I just actually, I'm coming before you. As you know, my name is Jason, and I was a tidbit that I had shared last week via our uh, weekly prayer line, and what I had shared about was how God inhabits the praises of His people, and what I tied that in with was of whatever it is that we are believing Him for. Because the Bible does mention that in His presence is the fullness of joy. But when we say in His presence is the fullness thereof, how do we encompass His presence? His presence is all around us, all day, every day, going out, coming in. But how do we sustain His presence amongst us throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the months, the years? When the word says that in His presence is the fullness thereof. I know it says fullness of joy, but let's just say fullness thereof. So if in His presence there is the fullness thereof, when then we, and now then adding on the fact in the correlation on the topic of praise, and it's being said that He inhabits the praises of His people. So if God inhabits the praises of His people, then it is in the midst of His praise that we now come to encompass the fullness of His presence. Because it says that in His presence is the fullness of. So rather, it's in which we come to encompass the fullness thereof, the fullness of what we are trusting and believing Him for, the fullness of our healing, the fullness of our deliverance, the fullness of our salvation, the fullness of our restoration, the fullness of our breakthrough, the fullness of our buster, whatever it is. But it is in His presence where the fullness thereof is. But how we obtain the fullness thereof is by He and His. So as we are praising Him, He, God, who inhabits our praise, then cause is then through our praise it is then caused for that which we are believing him for the fullness of it to be brought to fruition before time or in season or out of season. So the fullness thereof, as He, God, inhabits our praise, it is within the midst of our praise, the praise that He inhabits, by which the fullness of what we are trusting or have been trusting or are still trusting and believing Him for is then able to be brought to fruition in its entirety, whether it be for that day, for that moment, for that season, for that very hour. But it is the praise that releases the blessings. Because it is also said and understood that as the praises go up, the blessings come down. So if He, God, inhabits the praises of His people, so He Himself now receives our praise. But as He receives our praise, He is now inhabiting our space, our environment, our atmosphere, as we offer up our praises unto Him, as we lift up to Him our thanksgiving. Because the Bible says that we enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. So there's no shortcut, there's no way around it. We must first give Him thanks, and then we give Him praise. So our thanksgiving gives us access to the gates. And then the courts, my God, is what we offer. I should rather say our praises are what we offer up in the midst of His courts. So as we are praising Him, and God is inhabiting our praise, in the midst of Him inhabiting our praise, our atmosphere, our environment, as we are glorifying Him, as we're magnifying Him, as we are exalting Him. In the midst of that is through which the fullness or the manifestation, the materialization of that which we are trusting and believing Him for comes into fruition, comes into play, becomes, I should rather say, what was in called forth as though it were, though it was not in the physical realm, now is being materialized in the natural and is now being brought to fruition, in which we will now come to see the fruition, the manifestation of that which we have been trusting and believing Him for. Because having brought it before Him through prayers, through our supplications, through our petitions, now the recognition of now trusting that that prayer has been answered, and made it the fruition of the answered prayer. In other words, the manifestation of the house, the manifestation of the new bike, the manifestation of the new job, the manifestation of that promotion on the job, the manifestation of the launching off of that business, my God, na kos na na ho, may not have come forth, my God, in that moment. But as you had brought the petition before Him, made the request known to Him, my God, you having left it there, not asked anymore, but now have diverted from asking Him to now thanking Him and blessing Him and praising Him. Now, with Him now inhabiting the praises that you offered up to Him, now the material